Strange birds. Welcome to a new month. Happy April. Happy April Fools. Um, there and the upcoming solar eclipse, which will be on a new moon. So don't worry, I will be there. But yeah, crazy, fun, intense new times, eh? What a spring. The weather's been messing with us quite a bit. I should also get headphones. That's a smart idea. Woo! Lovely. Oh, I kicked something. But party on, welcome. So we're gonna go through the cycle of harmonies, the wheel of harmonies. We're gonna go through all of the zodiac, and I will pull a card or two, and we will see what that says as far as energies to look for or little tidbits, nuggets of wisdom for the weekend. Ooh, beautiful. Or not the weekend, for the month. Silly me. There's a whole lot of planetary action and energy in Aries. And it is Aries season proper. Happy birthday to some loved ones. And there's also a whole lot going on in Pisces. Um, with Pisces energy. So there's a very interesting clash of elementals, so to speak. Um, what I gather from that, especially with like Mercury retrograde, is at its inception. I feel like there was very much a whirlwind um, of energy shifting, and the way that the planets are pulling seems to be putting a lot of pressure on those water-based planetary aspects. So a lot of intimate and internal and emotional energies in Pisces, triggered by that. Keyword triggered. Mercury retrograde seems to be very triggering already, which is frustrating, but also always an opportunity to step back and do the hard work of some accountability, and some introspection. And at the very least, is a way to check yourself so that at the end of the day, you know, if it's still a problem, and then it's not your fault. Then it's not you. You did what you could do. You controlled what you can control. And at that point, maybe it's easier to walk away. Um, I also think in general, treat the antonym or treat the sort of opposite when you find these sort of inflammations in your life, be it emotionally or physically. Um, Meaning treating the opposite. So Aries and Chiron and Mercury and all of these connections, their antonym would be Libra, and they're like complementary color, so to speak, would be Libra, which would be uh, very much about liberty and justice, and fair trial and balance, and understanding the balance between your logic and your heart, and even amongst other scales, the weight of your soul. Um, and while that's a heavy concept, I do think that while the scales of Libra ultimately give a binary, the central point of the structure is also integral to its action, and that be who holds the scale, or the center bar of the scale itself, however you want to look at it. Either way, it's a one, or pillar of thought, and I think that ultimately leads to, much like the lovers, is a union but has multiple characters in it, often three characters. There's a tertiary, and there's a sort of creative tertiary solution to the binary. And I think that often in times of tribulation or combativeness, uh, is when you step back And maybe that means taking the high road, and oftentimes it does, in which case that person is the one that maybe takes on a little bit of the brunt, a little bit more of the brunt, and takes on a little bit, a lot more of any casualty, in that situation to, um, uphold a balance, or some sort of peace between the two. I guess sort of like a martyr, but not to that. It doesn't have to be to that extreme. More so like a mediator or a peacekeeper. And even in a maybe more relatable everyday context, the way parents, have to step back and I guess sacrifice to some degree, for the benefit of another party, for the benefit of their children or what have you. The ways in which we wake up early so our dog can walk, is in some ways a sacrifice. And again, not to the extreme of martyrdom. Let's not slip down the slippery slope of ego, but for the sake of personal responsibility and understanding what you can control. And for me, a lot of times that means I understand that I can take maybe a little bit more pain or stress than the people around me, or sickness even, and that it will pass through me maybe easier. So I use myself as tertiary situations to alleviate bickering, or use myself and my connection to the earth to alleviate sickness, or connection to energy to alleviate pain to some degree. Um, I know, big claims, but take it or leave it. Believe every story you've heard. Um, unpleasant high roads that bring ultimate ease rather than pleasure or notoriety, which are very much like tickling the chin of Aries kind of concepts that Aries adores. So, in a sense, pleasure becomes a sacrifice, like sacrificing your own quick high, um, which maybe as a more clear theme on some element of delayed gratification. Um, and that again isn't like martyrdom, like sacrifice yourself, but is the patient contemplative understanding of like, maybe we go to see this first because it's on the way and your friend really wants to go see it, and then go to the place that you really wanted to go because it's open later. That kind of mediation, that kind of peacekeeping and sort of understanding, and delayed gratification with yourself, which is like, maybe you want this, but you have to do this first. Maybe you want to jerk off, but you got to shower first. Maybe you want to eat, but you got to clean first. Um, Something like that. Uh, Conversely, Pisces and Virgo and their antonyms, um, given all of the emotional pressure that these planets conspire or are conspiring in the wake of Mercury's retrograde, is tugging on a very intimate thread, a very intimately woven thread, but a very intimate emotional thread. And again, fire and water. Maybe that means, and often for me means a little peak of some neurodivergence. Um, but given all the emotional pressure of these planets, and what they're conspiring, um, there is the element and the antonym of I think freedom and seclusion that exists within these things that will directly relate to again this Aries pleasure, and delayed gratification to some degree, um, and even in times of triggering, like the ways that we deal with our triggers, are they still upholding the progress that we've been making? Are they still honoring the ways in which we've been aiming to grow? Um, and I think, again, this kind of absolutely directly relates to like me dancing with martyrdom and sacrifice, because that can often feel like seclusion and it feels like you're cutting something off, but I don't want you to think of blood or bleeding. I want you to, or that kind of association with pain, or afraid, it really, that association with pain comes from a fear of loss, and I don't want you to think about that. I do want you to think that there is a freedom to the lack of need or necessity that comes with that. And maybe that's, a lack of need to get involved, or lack of need to, retort, um, in tense situations, a lack of need to, hit back, um, knowing the conclusions and the outcomes. Um, Ultimately, that's always an equation where you have to consider your risk and your the causal outcome of those situations. So let me not get too specific, but seclusion doesn't have to be alone or lonely, and sometimes loneliness can fill a room. So be mindful of the ways in which you fill your rooms, because sometimes these immediate pleasure release outlets fill the room with loneliness, actually. Um, I do think there's also an interesting element of digesting the pressure of all of this. And with Virgo involved, like Pisces being the pressure, and Virgo being involved, being the meticulous process of how we digest these things and how big of bites we're taking. If we're triggered by small things, small annoyances, I often find it a really great opportunity to learn how to set more boundaries for yourself and be clear about communicating. Little things that annoy us, are constantly picking, and it's a fun. It think of it as a fun, creative exercise of describing how exactly you want to feel, rather than shying away from what you do not want. Um, you can still look it in the eye. Um, and conversely, sometimes we get ourselves down looking at things in too big of bites, that become too heavy to digest, too dense. Uh, and I think, and especially maybe with what we're going through at the current time, we have to be, mindful about uh, the way the brain is processing and digesting emotions and food as well. Um, but in the example of like big bites versus small bites, um, for some is like, you know, just thinking about learning a new, I mean, and this happens in apps all the time, but just thinking about learning a new language is overwhelming. But when you break it down into a few minutes a day, something becomes that much more plausible. And when you do it in small bites, it does add up. 2 minutes every day becomes a lot of minutes throughout the year. And sometimes that's just the way that we need to go about it to build up the confidence to be able to go farther, longer, stronger, etc. So uh, progress maybe can be addressed in the confidence you have in your flow, rather than statistical elements of growth that you may be comparing yourself to. Growth and expansion comes in many forms, and stagnation is not something that really happens. I feel like everything is either growing or dying. Um, Not to be dark, but you're not as stuck as you may feel or think you are. And the weight that may occur will still be able to be digested. It's just a matter of how and why we munch on life the way that we do, I suppose. Small steps, small bites, which is a very Virgo thing too. It's very aware of each step, and the sensations I think that arise is very much where Pisces can uplift this experience rather than weigh it down. Um, with that being said, the moon is in Capricorn, I believe, with Ceres. Um, and I think in general, probably means or has to do with the fact that it's probably time to start breaking some rules, and also making some for yourself. And what uh, and what and how those things mean to your reward system. Like maybe this is a good month to Pavlov yourself, uh, so to speak. Um, and you'd be surprised with the outcome. But so with that, let me stop rambling, and we'll pick some cards. Starting with our dear Aries to see where you're at. We're going to use numbers. I like these numbers, and they're looking very good. Pick a card or two and see what comes through. Happy birthday. Party on. I hope you had a great time. I hope you got to be a ram in a china shop to some degree. In an escape, or what is it? Those break rooms. One of those sanctioned places for it. All right, Aries. What do we got for this month? Time. I feel like this is both ramping up and reminding us to slow down. Seven of Swords, Nine of Hearts. So I feel like our mind is starting to catch up with our heart, and our heart is like thoroughly invested in something, like very, very like attached to something, and we can like rush into it. Is this maybe also an anxious attachment style to something? Not that everything is again that binary or that simple, but we can lunge toward the things that we like, or that we really really like, and ultimately scare it away or sort of cause it to pull back from us. It's a lot like rushing in a little too dry, if that makes sense to anybody. Um, where you can stop and sort of study, see the forest for the trees, stop, smell the roses, whatever. Um, or what this is directly for me, maybe, um, like annotating, which slows down your reading process, but ultimately like helps you process information more because you're starting to relate with it, and you sort of exactly do that, like pick information, put it in, pick information, and sort of put it in, and input into the information, which makes the reading experience so much more intimate and interactive. And often I find myself kind of in the world with it, which is so like overreaching and arching and fulfilling and all of these wonderful things. All of these very fulfilling things, the Seven of Diamonds. So we don't have to rush toward fulfillment. We can stride in it and still toward it 100%. And maybe that is a perspective in the way that you define success, and the way that you uh, enjoy the process of your goals. Um, maybe that's a good point to focus on, and a good time to focus on it. It's raining a lot lately, so stay inside and spend some time with yourself. Um, dot 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 dot. Yeah, that's good. Party on. Thanks, Aries. Love ya. I hope that helps. Keep that in your back pocket. Love. Taurus, my dear. My cute, sweet dear. Sweet little earth bull. All right, what's up, Taurus? What you need, love? Woo! Okay. You got to take out the trash. And I think be very clear about again, not necessarily clear in your boundaries, but clear in the way that you want to feel so that it makes setting boundaries easier. That was something that I said earlier. I don't remember the order exactly, but rewind and go back. Um, Eight of spades, three of diamonds. You got to take out some trash. You got to clean out some corners, clear some spider webs, check off some things of your to-do list. Whatever it is that feels like it's shedding weight, shedding skin, spring cleaning of the heart and of the soul. And again, rather than just be like, I need more boundaries, I need more boundaries, I need to say no more. It's a lot of shooting yourself, and it doesn't do anything to clarify what it is that you do want. It's a lot of things that you don't want, and the universe hears that and is just like, "Oh, for sure." Um, Again, that focus and intention, creating reality thing. Um, but if you get very clear on the way that you want to feel, um, then I think it becomes that much more vivid when that is not the case, and then it can be very clear to be like, I just don't like this, and I'm going to take myself out of here until I can figure out why. I do not like this feeling, so I'm going to take a step out and process that, because we don't have to necessarily know what it is or why, but we do know how to. We ought to know how to respond when our body is responding to us. And in that way, we can sort of uphold it in the same way you would if, like, your kid was crying at the store, or your dog was anxious at a new house. You'd be like, hey, I'm going to assess the situation and then we'll come back and figure this out. Um, so, eight of spades. This is also cycles of thought. Taking out old habits, taking out old patterns of um, old patterns, maybe based on memories that were not honoring you in the way that you are now. Um, this is when we don't go back to that, younger self, and give it the high five or the hug, or give them the high five or the hug, or whatever was needed at that moment. The eight of spades is asking us to do that, and what they're asking us to do is take out that which is not feeding the ground. Um, and what you can do is also feed the ground. It's not all that. It's not necessarily that everything bad in us is trash, but we do have to make space for other, and process you through these things, and uh, have our own chemical reaction in the same way that the sky eats the ocean and rains it down on us. So if trash is too intense and it's not trash to you, consider just sending your pain to the earth, and consider sending your heartbreak to, the wood grain in your floor or the trees around your house, because the trees have been around for a lot longer than we have. So I'm sure they've seen many a heartbreak and probably know a bit more than we do. Um, and then the three of diamonds is very much, again, manifesting in the way that you want to feel. And that becoming more clear, that clarifying how to set boundaries, and clarifying, I think, the way you'll see the universe interacting with you when you start focusing on what it is you do want to feel, what it is you do enjoy feeling when you're with somebody that you're safe with and that you're comfortable with. And when you feel safe and comfortable in your own body, what does that feel like? Like, fuck everybody else, fuck any situation where that has or has not happened. What does it feel like when you are? When you're alone and it doesn't feel like anybody's watching, and you shamelessly do whatever it is you do to feel safe and comfortable and seen and heard. This is also why I love yoga, because for a long time, my mat was the only thing that really felt like I could be the full spectrum of who I am. That space, not just the mat, but that space. And for that time, didn't ask me to be feminine or masculine or to explain it over and over again or to be power or anything or to judge during vulnerability. Uh, it's a good place to be. And then the more I got familiar, I found it was simply in my mind. The place, I mean, and the safety, but grateful as ever to the tools. Uh, Let me not ramble. I feel like that's enough. I'm kind of looping, and we're trying not to do that, right? Dear Gemini, da, 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 da. Dear Gemini, what's need you, love? Dear Gemini, where are you going? Okay. Um, 10 of clubs, 9 of spades. I feel like the body's moving faster than the mind. Um, Perhaps even the heart is moving faster than the mind because clubs is very much heated energy. Um, I mean, that could be a lot of things too. Um, I do think the mind is trying to keep up, but falling short. Perhaps because it's having trouble continuing these cycles. The Ten of Wands is reversed, so maybe these are cycles that just like, yeah, maybe our head's just not in it, whatever it is. Um, or is distracted because this Ten of Wands may not exactly know where it's going or what's going to happen, and that's totally fine. Um, that's not a dig. Uh, being feeling lost isn't a dig at all. I feel like a lot of people are feeling that, and I feel like everything is changing. So, even for as much as I may sound like I've got anything figured out, I really am only constantly experimenting and exploring and educating myself when I can. But experience over everything. So, be kind to yourself. Don't rush your mind to keep up because I think it'll exhaust your body. And not knowing where to go is not a bad thing either. I feel like staying still and sort of savoring the moment and really tasting everything for what it is may clarify maybe why our mind is absent there or why we feel absent-minded in certain places or why maybe our mind feels lingering in other places, um, or wants other things. You know what? Not that even lingering is a bad thing. What is? Oh, I love this good and bad back and forth with you. Uh, but sometimes the things that we're lingering over uh, are the things we do really want, and we're talking ourselves out of. Like I'm thinking, sort of like hovering over buttons. Uh, like should I buy this? Should I send this? Da 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 da. Should I go here? Should I blah da 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 da? And sometimes the experience is worth the shenanigan. Sometimes the experience is just worth it. Uh, Sometimes it's a good time to say F it, but only when it tastes good, only when it's savory, only when I think it makes you want to slow down, actually. Because the Ten of Wands And this nine of spades is a lot of fast and forward motion. And it almost stops short, like cold feet or finding a cliff, I suppose. It's just like, whoa, didn't see that. Um, which is also fine. Like, don't should yourself because something is surprising. Uh, again, savor the ride, savor the enjoyment. Um, you don't necessarily have to slow down. Seems like you like moving fast. Um, but know where you're going. And you know what? This actually makes me think of something that I heard in a like tactical driving class video thing. Um, for as fast as race cars drivers go, um, it was something along the lines of like you should always be thinking about stopping. You should always be thinking about how long it's going to take you to stop, and how far you need to do that. So if you're going 120 miles an hour, then at all times you should also be conscious of it's going to take me, you know, 5 seconds, this much feet, about this point to stop. Can I do that right now? Uh, and if not, then you reassess. So go fast, but be engaged with your speed, uh, and allow that to make you very aware of the way that you're operating, rather than the operations operating for you. Um, and faster than maybe you can recognize, that can be the source of a lot of anxiety too, actually. Um, and you can get lost in that. So again, don't should yourself, but like chill, savor it, and taste it. What does steady taste like? And what is where you want to go feel like? Maybe that'll lead you more than anything. Follow your nose or follow the wind or whatever it is. Sweet Cancer. I say sweet, but I'm pretty sure that this a study where it's like Cancers and Sagittariuses are a high amount of serial killers. No offense. It's just a funny thought. One of those extreme opposites. Cancer, how are you? What do you need? Hmm. Oh, you need a love song. I feel like you miss falling in love. Or you miss love for love's sake, like you miss flirting for flirting's sake. You miss like the high of it, the joy of it, I suppose. And high and joy are two very different things. Um, so be clear on what it is that you miss. I think when you miss the joy of love, uh, it's because you have a lot of joy you want to share, or a lot of joy that you see in the world to be shared. And when you miss the high, it's because you're low and you miss being high, or you're feeling down and you want something to lift you up. Um, and I feel you. I feel you. But thankful for this card, the Ten of Swords. Um, it is a wonderful, devotionally successful card in a lot of ways. And I think if anything needs to be lifted up, it's maybe your voice about yourself and um, your passion for whatever it is that does bring you joy. Which in a very real way, even as I do this, like say it with your chest, whatever it is. Um, I think that's very eminent of Ten of Swords kind of energy in a really positive way. Whatever it is in your life that you are heartfelt attached to, say it with chest, and let that carry you forward. Because that will be its own high, and that will be its own uplifting, and that will start to decompress of all of the things that weigh us down that we are attached to. The Nine of Diamonds also being here. What is this? Like bottom of the deck? Yeah. Is I think uh okay. Um I feel like it's a lot of waiting, like waiting for things to get better, or like waiting for things to be interesting, or like waiting for something to change, waiting for something to catch your eye, I suppose. Um, it's kind of dreary, actually. At least what the energy that I'm getting from this card, which is funny because I rarely see it in that way. It rarely comes through in that way. However, the converse would be uh, gratitude. And small steps, small bites, gratitude. Small shimmers and glimmers of hope. Uh, Little things that add up into big things, good things. For me, very much, it's the silly way that I sing to myself throughout the day, about little things that I like, or that happen, or that I notice. I sing to my little plants, and they sure seem to love it. Um, and that brings me little bits of joy that makes me happier for myself and for other people. So do you see how that grows? You see how and you know what? They're growing pretty strong too, saying it with their chest. Um, Sing yourself a love song before you ever ask, not before ever. Sing yourself a love song before you go expecting somebody else to. So that you can do away with that expectation and just have love to sing, because that attracts lovers more than anything. You'd be surprised. Um, and allow that to be bits and chimes of gratitude. Uh, be mindful of your voice and where you feel it in your body, and where you want to feel it in your body, and how that feels in your body. I think now is a really interesting time in the world, where we're moving through a lot of rage and aggression, um, and anxiety and annoyance, and all of these things. I don't know why they're all A's, but we are learning to use our voices all over again. Um, we're learning to walk and use our voices all over again, and in ways that I don't think we were ever meant to understand. I don't think we were raised to understand, but I definitely don't think we were ever meant to understand by modern society. Um, and I think that when you're more aware of where your voice sits and vibrates in your body when you're talking, you can see when and why very clearly in your body as you're moving through tense or tough or vulnerable situations. And ultimately, I think being able to see that or feel that is a really good key in unlocking it so that it can be released. And so that you don't have this piece of you uh, sort of weighing on your hope in loving yourself, and seeing that value. I think effectively maybe it would clear some of your vision, so that you can see good and victory and success, and uh, something worthwhile, whether that be yourself or what to strive for. Either way, it sure is looking into the future, and looking into the mirror. And looking into the water, dear Cancer. Um, you are in Cancer outright. You are in prime habitat for total internal reflection. And I think it's a really good time. Use all of the elements upon us wisely, and I guess I shouldn't say wisely. Use them to your advantage. You don't have to be wise about it. Just be understanding about it. Watch through this and see what hurts and what's your Chiron in, and where's your Mars and where's your Venus, and what's it got to say about what hurts and why. And talk about it, sing about it, speak about it, mumble about it, scream about it if you have to. Whatever unlocks parts of your voice and your psyche that you still have but haven't used. Secret weapon. Secret weapon, Cancer. Love ya. Tough shit going on. I dig. Dear Leo. Oh, hello, other person. Dear Leo, what say you? Dear Leo, what do you need to hear? Are you happy, Leo? Interesting. Three of Diamonds, King of Clubs. The King of Clubs, being very responsible, already has this relationship with he. I think it's very much the patriarchal figure maybe within you or in your life that is an example of that. That is responsible, does the hard things, does the long things, does the meticulous things, and doesn't shit you for it. Like dad mows the lawn and we thank him for it. But maybe you're dad and maybe it's not the lawn, it's organizing your thoughts, organizing years of old poetry. It's proofreading your friend's uh, new resume. It's various little, maybe difficult things. Or, that one best friend that will sit and fucking clean your house with you. That is ride or die. That is that homie. The three of diamonds here, which has showed up before, but is showing up in a very different state and placement that I think is more engorged in fear. I think is more engorged in fear and not stable. Feels stagnant because of that. Um, and also very anxious. I think this is. Ooh, I think this is maybe the ways in which we get caught up viewing the world through other people's eyes, which is actually a lot. Actually, what I have often attributed um, my own anxious sensations to is, or I guess visceral sensations to, is that anxiety feels a lot like living your life through everybody else's eyes, and how disempowering that can feel. But it's not that these people are taking my power. It is that I can understand this and recognize it and effectively, try and pick my perspective out of their eyes instead and find my own and put them back in my head so that I can see through my own experience and honor that and say it with my chest. Uh, should I say anything to the party at all? Um, and I think this is very that. This is watching the world through somebody else's eyes. This is, the fear of a movie or a show or whatever, too. And there's a lot of really strange movies that are coming out that are perfect for this. Horror is one of my favorite genres, and I will never change that, I'm sure. Um, but uh, and with that, I suppose, not a but. This is also why I love it. I do think that horror movies have always and will always capitalize on the zeitgeist of the times. In previous decades, in like 50s and 60s, it was like, oh no, will she ever marry again? Or like, will do they believe her? Do they even see her? Or something silly of that nature. Or some like extreme scientist playing God kind of thing. And then there was decades where it was like, don't travel, those foreigners are terrifying. Movies like Hostel and The Hills Have Eyes and stuff. And there's absolutely a whole wave of, download this app and it'll kill you kind of movies. Um, so there's some funny stuff coming out. That's definitely like purposely uh to like help see the world through somebody else's eyes and sort of allow you to forget seeing it through your own, which don't get me wrong, sometimes that's fun and what have you. But everything in balance. Don't get too caught in living your life in that way. Uh or being subject to that position without your own choice. And sometimes it's the hard choice of like saying no to those things too. And choosing to have different input, and maybe that's also completely contextually relevant at the time to the way that you're feeling. Um, which is why, some days are good for stand-up comedy and some days are good for late night horror. And some days are cartoon days and some days are sappy cry days. So allow yourself to flow wherever you need to go. Um, even if you're not sure where it's going to take you. And sometimes that's the responsible lawn mowing dad thing to do for yourself, is be the one that spelunks into the crawl space to find the, dead raccoon, for yourself. Sorry for the gross example, but shit happens. I have very much been the person to like remove a critter from my neighbor's house or something because shit happens. And I'm often that homie. Again, the tertiary solution where to provide a little relief and a little ease and a little peace, you do the hard thing in some way, even if it's not as hard to you, but harder for others. Um, yeah, let me not ramble too hard. Party on. Love you. Rock out. Woo! Okay, Virgo, calm down. We will move through all of these things. Hmm. What's up, Virgo? What do you need? Woo! Three of Swords, Seven of Hearts. Together, this is very much about making room for big change, for big things, for big growth in your life. It's a big catch. It's like a big fucking catch. Which can be very blinding and requires a hell of a lot of trust in yourself, and don't be wavered, and don't move too small just because you're doubtful. That's not saying like rush into things. It's saying don't move too small because you question yourself. Um, don't dip your toe in the water when you know you like to swim. And don't dip your toe in the water when you know you're gonna like the temperature. The Three of Swords is very run toward what you love, very much like what fulfills, what brings you, uh, what fills you, what makes you want to say it with your chest, what makes your blood boil, what fills your heart and your heartstrings, what is passionate and fulfilling for you. It is spades, but also swords. So it has a really positive connotation despite like heartbreak or what have you. It is very much what holds us upright. Um, and sometimes we break our own heart for not trying. So again, this big catch, this like blinding light. Um, it is you making big room in life or in your mind or in your heart for potentially big change. Um, and one that I think changes structure. This card's like very much a shattered window. Changes structure, but does lead to more. Um, it's sort of like a leap of faith, but that catches you on really soft ground. Despite this broken window, but sevens are gorgeous numbers. Trust numbers to trust in, perhaps. Lucky seven. There you go. It's kind of frothy. Kind of frothy. Um, Lots of big things, lots of big changes. But I do think, again, this is that Virgo Pisces intensity. So sometimes the intensity can be like, shit, I don't know. That's a really big move. That's a really bold move. But I think Virgo is very capable of being bold sometimes, so much so that they do get ahead of themselves too. But I think this is a really good trust your heart kind of scenario. Trust your heart and find out just how big it is. Trust your gut and find out how big the world is. That can be quite rewarding. And I think a pleasant major chord. Go Virgo. Love ya. All right, dear Libra. How are you? How's life? How's living? Let's see what we got for you. Oh, a little scatterbrained. All right. All right, Libra. Hmm. This happened. This happened earlier. But slightly different. But slightly different. Interesting. Um, Bottom of the deck is the Ten of Spades. Top, King of Wands. Oh, I feel like this is like burnout though. I feel like this is burnout and like not asking for help. Like burnout and like a huge disappointment in yourself when there's no need to be. Shit happens, things break, uh, things don't go the way that we want them to. Shit happens out of nowhere. Party on. Um, and we try really hard. Ultimately, like if you're trying, party on. Like that's all I think anybody really needs to do. Beyond assessing or associating ourselves with good or bad, because that can shift at any moment. Um, don't exhaust yourself because you feel like it's supposed to be the right thing to do. And don't darken your world by refusing help or refusing to ask for help. Uh, Sometimes that is because we're not very clear on what it is that we need. Ow, that hit a nerve, literally. Sometimes it's because we're not clear on what we need. We're not clear on how we need support or what we need support in, or we have a very difficult time finding a creative solution outside of what feels like only literal problems, or what feels like something that we cannot navigate our way out of. And I'm not saying that I know all the fucking political or tax loopholes. I know there are laws in place that are unreasonable and nonsensical. And I know that there are things that are less accessible for one reason or another. However, there's many things that pull us back from asking for help, or asking for even just a vent so that we can clear our plate so that we can find a creative solution, and maybe just find a hopeful way to move. Um, but we can't do that if we hold all of this inside and silence ourselves through it and make sure that nobody lets us see us sweat. And we just pretend we're okay till we're not. Um, it catches everybody off guard, including yourself, because it it will boil over when you least expect it. Um, so in a very real way, this is also like becoming very clear with your voice and becoming very clear with your wants and your needs and what that feels like. Um, but in a very real way, if it's things outside of your hand, get wildly imaginative. Think of the absolute best case scenario and put some focus into that. Um, I think meditation has consistently helped me uh, put some very physical worries aside so that I can find a solution without uh, the deep and heavy stress of needing to find a solution. Um, it has definitely helped me a lot with that. And you know what? Faster than you'd think, really. Faster than sometimes just racking your brain for miraculous ideas. But, that's not to say a word map doesn't help. Sometimes you just have to start somewhere and see where it takes you, uh, so that you can investigate a wider parameter than what you feel like you're in. And maybe that's a first step too, is where everything else seems to be constricting. Where can we find space? Where can we find, even the slightest bit of alleviation? Um, and, sometimes that's budget cutting, and sometimes that's, saying no to friends, even if we haven't seen them for a while. And sometimes that's saying no to ourselves, even if that's quitting smoking because we just can't keep up with it, or they just raise the prices, or what have you. Um, all of that takes into account. And Libra may feel like its scales are thrown off. However, uh, it is not broken. You are not broken. And there are ways to shift this so that we can find equilibrium. And ultimately, a very integral balance of the two or many. Oh, I feel you, Libra. I also can relate. Uh, I'm pretty sure I'm a Libra Vedic, actually, which is interesting because I'm a Western Sag, but I'm Scorpio in another way. So that's mostly what I identify with. But again, that's why you can learn a lot from engaging with all of the signs, because we are a circle and there is a harmony. And a lot of us are finding center or middle C in some way, shape, or form. Speaking of Scorpio, there we go. Yes, dear. Uh, okay. I think Scorpio's going pretty deep on this, per usual. Um, Two of Diamonds, Eight of Wands. Okay, this is very much like central point, like within a field of fire, or within a not a toroidal field, but like within a flames, within I like feel like it's like torches around, and then like two central figures. Um, this is very much a deep renewal or resurrection. Happy Easter. Um, there is. I'll show you. The Two of Wands is very much like bathing in, and so it's very much renewal and what have you. But honestly, I think some of the best ideas come when we're in the shower, because we're sort of doused in the elements. Steam from the heat, and there's water pouring in, and the sweat, and I think this is a very sensory overwhelmed place to be, but with yourself and in your like mind, in your mind's eye. Um, I mean, it also maybe hypersexual too, or like very like intimate and like randy and rowdy, and very confident. However, uh, I think that level of exuberance can get hot with the level of triggering that may be in the air. So stay cool and stay even keeled and stay balanced and stay in a reflective state, so that you understand uh, what these triggers are, why these people are triggering you, um, rather than uh, react or be defensive. Because I think that's very much uh, a good, an easy, natural place to be. Not a good, an easy, natural place to be for a vigilant Scorpio. Um, the Eight of Wands here is also very much, I think, about understanding, like, read the room, understand the room, understand the energies that you're around. Again, you allow people to be reflective, um, reflections of yourself in times of trigger. But also, again, like the shower and thoughts and like all of these elements. Um, in what ways do we retreat into our sensory realities? In what ways do we exist in our mind's eye, really? What does your inner avatar look like? What does it sound like? What does it smell like? How does it tick? How does it turn you on? Uh, how do you turn you on? These are all very important things to know, and very prime information to fill your auric field with, um, because it furthers your self knowledge, and so your auric field will become, thicker and more potent and more viscous and more uh, penetrating, even. Your heart will become more penetrating in that light as well. So this feels like a really positive and powerful time. However, the fog can be hard to see through if you are not the fog itself. Um, which is, I think, also the back and forth of savoring, um, savoring your solitude, um, and utilizing it as time to really check in with your mind's eye and check in with your sensory reality, especially when we're triggered, because sometimes that sensory reality is coming from something else too. Uh, and sometimes that sensory reality is really painful and vivid, for some very important reasons. Uh, so spend some lovely naked time with yourself in true Scorpio fashion and smell it. Sagittarius, my dear philosopher. Teacher, preacher, always think it's greener on the other side. Alright, Statue baby. Oh, okay. Alright. Oh, snap. And it's sorry. Joker and the Two of Swords. Transformation. Um, this is a transformation, I think, of confidence, maybe more so than like a movement or anything. The Two of Swords that's with it is very directional in quality. But that can have a lot to do with where our mind takes us in things. Sometimes that's like reprogramming your memory. You used to hate mayonnaise and now you love it on sandwiches. Or you used to hate bell bottoms and now you think you look great in them. Um, It could be a perspective shift, but very much a confidence. It is a perspective shift, just about always. Um, it could be as simple as a perspective shift. Uh, Again, great time to Pavlov ourselves. But this is a very creative mind shift, confidence boost kind of thing. Something very integral, something that's very much confidence filling. And maybe that's even just, having more confidence in your intelligence, doubting yourself less because you've done the research, willing to bet. And if you haven't, well, shame on you. Get that ego and that nose out of the sky, and do your structuring. And funny, even the like visual of a Sagittarius being like an archer, um, that movement alone comes from so much structure. I know bodily Sagittarian energy is like thighs. So are we thinking where we're going without stabilizing it again? Central point balance. Uh, there's a lot of movement that is very difficult if your hips are not balanced. Um, Hip imbalance can come from defensiveness based in shame. Um, and I think that in and of itself is a huge directional shift. That could be the crossroads of I'm not going to shame myself for where I've been. Um, and having faith in your integrity to make choices that will continue to make you proud. And that's also finding pride in the experiences that you've had and how far it's gotten you. Um, so for this being a very cerebral, transformative energy, um, let's not judge ourselves or pathologize ourselves um, into not choosing what would ultimately lift our shoulders and drop them back. What would ultimately give us the confidence to be able to expose our minds and our hearts a little bit more confidently, um, and trustingly rather than defensively, which in turn is allowing people to see into your world. And that is an important thing. And I think something that people will regard as a stopping point, and as a place to, contemplate, rather than it be a fork in the road of anxiety or anything. More like, the prime location of, right on the perfect crossroads kind of thing. Um, can be that. Your energy can be that, can be a meeting point. Your heart can be that, can be, the perfect meeting place for anything that aligns well with that, and endeavors that are heart aligned in that way. Um, that you are creatively conspiring can move and aim in that way. Just drive from the thighs and hold yourself upright and stand firm in what you know to be true because you have felt it and experienced it, not just because you read it. Unless you read it on Reddit, it is a pretty good source. Oh gosh. Okay. Capricorn. For you, love. Happy baby. Okay. Okay. This is about what we're connecting to. Emotionally and physically, for sure. I mean, obviously, mentally plays a part in this, but this is very much physically and emotionally off the bat. Um, Four of Hearts, Nine of Diamonds. Again, this like card, but it has such a like a grayness to it. Um, we are we're connecting to things or seeking connection, but finding that there's still an emptiness. Um, inviting lots of people out, but still finding there's an empty seat that ultimately, takes the cake. Uh, and sort of takes the experience. Or ultimately still, we're surrounded by people, but still finding a void. I said something earlier about how loneliness can fill a room. Um, and I had said something before too about, the moon and Capricorn and this being a time to break and make rules. And that's maybe specifically here what we're connecting to and who we're connecting with. Um, that may not be very fulfilling. What is your reward system? What is your punishment system for yourself? Why do we have a punishment system? Um, and who are the people that we're reaching out to and why? Uh, there are people that we reach out to, sometimes just because we know they're going to be down for whatever and, down to strike up chaos with us. As fun as that can be, is it all just fun? Because sometimes it is. Sometimes it totally is, and you have the best time ever. But if it's not all just fun, then careful. Sometimes people are just using. Um, Sometimes people really want something from you, or are actually really judgmental. Those aren't always the people that are the ones that are speaking the highest of us or treating us the best. Um, and again, ultimately, this like beautiful gratitude card is just kind of like hum and drum and like dull and sort of bored and lonely and waiting and almost like, "Oh, I've got no friends," like, "Oh, all I've got is these, like, dark thoughts," and seeing less than you have even, um, feeling even lonelier the more that you have or the more people are around. Um, so we readdress, we break some rules and we make some rules. Maybe we try something new, maybe we try something we've never tried before. Maybe we hang out with somebody that we never thought we'd get along with. Maybe we hang out with somebody that's exactly unlike us, just for shits and giggles, just as an experiment. But you'd be surprised. People do balance each other out too. That's some of my that's one of my favorite things about one of my best friends is just how different we can look going out together. Um, and uh, the way people's perceptions interact with that. Um, And it always, keeps me aware. And, of course, I would do anything if anybody, or do anything to protect if anybody had said something sideways. But me aside, um, who are we texting and why? What are we saying? What is happening in these moments where we're feeling so vulnerable? Um, and are we using these connections as a mask or disguise or an escape? That is very important. People can be. Sometimes people just want to smoke weed and put a show on the background. And I honestly, I hate that. I hate background noise altogether. Can't sleep with it. Like, no. I love putting on music and albums, don't get me wrong, but I will absolutely be that person that's like, oh, wait, favorite part. Um, but And there's some people where you forget to play an album because you're just talking so much, and that's also extra good. Um, and it's not that there's anything wrong with background noise, but sometimes there's just homies that are less homies than we really give them the space for. But I think be honest with yourself instead of connecting with something outside of you, connect with you, connect inside, connect with your fucking journal, with your notepad, connect with your reflection, connect with your internal reflection. Um, and maybe consider what you would want to hear, if you're feeling like nobody's answering you back, maybe even. Um, what would you want to hear from a friend right now that would make you respond? And maybe send that. Sometimes I send messages to people I love, not even because I want a response, but just because I want them to know that I'm thinking of them. Um, and then I feel bad when it elicits a response and then I can't respond. But they know I'm there, they know I'm thinking, and it reinforces that this is a connection that I do want and that makes me feel a particular way and what have you, in a particular positive way, and that I'm there for him ultimately. That I'm there, that I'm still here, I'm still hearing you, I'm still feeling you. And those connections, even when distant, can really combat the loneliness that can occur in these transitionary times. Dear Capricorn, much love. You got this. All right. Next up, Aquarius. Dear Aquarius, how are you? How are you feeling? How are you feeling? Dear Aquarius. Hmm. Hmm. This is interesting. Okay. Again, this card. I promise you I shuffled uh quite a, quite a few times. And this card. Together we have. But I feel perhaps for such a space cadet, or for such a, spacey illusionary energy, and sort of out there thinker or outlier. I feel like this is indicating that we may feel a little bit more stuck to the earth or pulled to the earth or maybe grounded, maybe in a grounded way. And to a large degree, I'm sure that's very new and a little off-putting. But to some, maybe that is like stuck, feeling stuck, feeling very stuck in patterns, feeling very stuck in routine, um, bored with it, maybe, feeling like you're playing a game or like the same game over and over again, and feeling quite bored with that. Uh, or bored with yourself, maybe you feel like you haven't grown, but I promise you again, everything is growing. It's just what direction is the question. Um, if our creativity feels stunted, great opportunity again to tap in with our sort of inner sensory reality. Um, if that's not just sensory pleasure, what brings satisfaction? Um, I think is a great way to look at it. And ironically, I say look because the seven of spades figure isn't looking necessarily maybe through sunglasses or blinding glasses, um, but is moving at a steady pace, taking in surroundings move for move. So the thing with boring games is like setting scenery, excitation. Um, and I think the thing with like seeing, uh, what did I say? Seeing like how you wanted to feel or what have you. Um, this is very much about a new creative possibility. This is not thwarted creativity, like not being able to see where it is you want to be, or like not being able to see what you want to create or what you want to paint or what have you. Feeling like maybe there's a lull or like a spark lull. Um, there isn't. You have to zap your brain. Um, Satisfaction, little win. That's what it is. Not necessarily like sensory satisfaction, but a fulfillment and satisfaction, which comes in completing a project, comes in completing some sort of creative endeavor. So maybe that's giving yourself a little creative goal, or trying to build or do something uh, not necessarily new, but maybe something that you wanted to finish, so that you can have that fullness and satisfaction after having completed said task. Like the fullness of a home cooked meal. I think is ultimately more satisfactory than eating in. Um, it's very much a brain game, but also don't beat yourself up for it. I can be harsh when I say boring people are bored, but uh, I think when you give yourself space, you'll find just how creative you can be with solutions to whatever problem you have or whatever stagnancy you have. You just have to give yourself the space for it, and allow yourself to create beyond what you've created before, which, like this character said, and I said before, will not look specifically like anything, and maybe isn't perhaps something we can imagine at the moment, but we can feel, and we will feel when it's right. So pay attention to something that sparks your interest in you, and you really feel it, tickle your zhuzh. Hmm. Good luck, Aquarius. Love ya. Last but not least, our dear Pisces. Deep, dark, heavy pressure Pisces. We do love you. Much and long time. Thank you to the random homies that have joined in the process. Uh, I hope you get a chance to go back if you missed anything live and check out other stuff besides my initial rambles. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Pisces. Two of Wands, Ace of Hearts, and Two of Wands inverted at that. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like this also indicates maybe a very deep overwhelm or sense of lost, of feeling lost. This Two of Wands being inverted is like maybe on a fast track to downhill, or is lost at the navel gazing and introspection, lost under the pressure of it, lost in the haze and darkness of it, because you've lost sight of what originally matters, which is your heart, your sense of self, your original bliss, original love. beyond the ego. Because Ace of Hearts is very much the teacher and the leader, and like a spiritual leader, a spiritual uh, ruler of self that leads us on the path, a deep, heartfelt sense that is like, oh, epiphany. This is what I have to do. This is what I was meant to do. And without that, this Two of Wands is like, no idea where I'm going. I'm just going downhill. I'm just going deep. I have to excavate the bugs in my body so that I can find this. Little do you know, thinking that you have bugs in your body and that you are infested with ill will, maybe, or undesire is the only problem. Because I think it maybe puts a heavy expectation that clouds what this Ace of Hearts can really lead you to, and ultimately wants to lead you to beyond your logic, wants to throw you a bone. And I think the Ace of Hearts is also maybe not this character, is a place in which the heart throbs and grows when we find creative endeavor, creative outlet, something expressive to really invest in. Um, whether it, however it be, some people express themselves by, researching and writing. Some people express themselves through cooking. Some people express themselves through teaching. Some people, however it is. Even for the many hats I've worn, there is always a uniting theme. Um, because I keep safe space and a handful of other things. This isn't about me. Um, but that's the space, right? And I think that perhaps what we've taken this character to be is very strict and like tiger momish and like very shitty and very like uh you know critique perfection, yada yada yada, which, don't get me wrong, there's something to be said about being very critique sensitive, and being unable to really receive it without taking it personally, um and that's a whole other story. uh but if that's the case, why are we the first people to do it to ourselves too? If we're already taking it personally, like, these are the ways in which you're not on your way down, you're driving yourself down. You're not, on a slippery slope down. You're like pushing yourself off a cliff rather than, you know, allowing yourself to see beyond the horizon, and see and look up, allowing yourself to look up, rather than look down in fear and worry and dread. Um, so maybe that's a small but good exercise. Look up and see where your mind can take you, for little bits of creative exercise, and see what happens and pops up in your mind, and see if you document that and you do it often, what are the reoccurring themes, and maybe that's something that will lead you towards something that is more of a direction than where this Two of Wands is already going, which is nowhere fast, and is leaving this Ace of Hearts behind. But I promise you, if you find a general thematic of your interests, if you keep track of them, just writing for a little bit, maybe every day, or a little bit of habit tracking to some degree, uh, will be able to take the Ace of Hearts or discover the Ace of Hearts and then take it with it. Um, or like I said, even for the many hats I've worn, maybe not go through your resume, but think of all the things that you've done that you've really enjoyed doing and why. And I'm pretty sure there's an interwoven concept there. So you just enjoy exploring yourself and figuring out what weaves it all together so that you can see the bigger picture of what you have to offer rather than weighing yourself down with not having more to offer or not being sure what you have to offer. Rough, rough stuff, but we love you anyway, dear. hardcore and some heavy stuff. I do think there's some repetition and some relevance throughout. Um, so if you watched all of it, party on. If you only watched your sun, then do what you need to do. And if you dabbled in some converses, that's rad. So if you did your sun, rock your moon. If you find your Venus, rock your Mars. If you notice that in your own chart, there's a lot of planetary energies going to be rocking with you this April, then see what exists on the opposite end of sort of like understanding the, not the enemy's jargon, but like just like understanding the opposing view so that you can find equilibrium. But yeah, I will leave you with that. Party on. Thank you for rocking out with me. I hope you have a smooth ride of an April. I hope you stop and smell the rain when it does. And I wish you love. Party on. And until next time.